My dear soul warriors, how are you? I hope this video finds you well and in good spirits. And in this video, we'll be talking about how to develop courage and also remove negative thinking that can block the formation of courage and good blessings into your life. So that's what I'm going to talk about here because I got this really lovely email from a sister and she requested this particular topic and I thought, yes, I think I can talk about this given that this is a very relatable topic for me as well. So here I am in this video talking about it, and I hope that this will help you as well. So I mentioned in a previous video as well that I was actually naturally quite shy, and I never really had a high self-esteem or a lot of confidence either, even though outwardly I might appear confident, and I might have appeared confident for much of my life. But especially when I was in school, and even when I got to sixth form, I was not confident, and I wasn't much confident either through the first part of uni. I remember I got an award when I was in year 10 for being the quietest person in the class. And so I was not always very courageous outwardly and confident outwardly, but I developed it over time. And I think it does take a lot of mindful practice, and it does take a lot of work to get there if you're not naturally inclined that way. But it doesn't mean that you can't get there and that you can't become more assured and more self-confident, etc. Just takes some effort. So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's talk about what it takes to stop those negative thoughts and what it takes to build courage. I know I've been talking about some topics on YouTube that are difficult for a lot of people to discuss, and it's difficult for me to discuss them too. And I was driven by purpose, and that is the common denominator in a lot of this discussion on my part when I talk about how to build courage and how to stop the negative thoughts. Like when you have a purpose that's kind of overriding your own worries and your own concerns about yourself, then that purpose can drive you and literally steamroll you through all the roadblocks that are in your path. And that's what I've seen happen to me. Like there are things that I've felt that I needed to start talking about because it's for the benefit of the greater good. So I found myself start talking about them. And then as you do it, and this goes for like any challenge or any struggle that you have in life, once you take that first step towards it, then the second step becomes a little bit easier, then the third step becomes a little bit easier, and then before you know it, you're in a flow, and then you can get through that obstacle. And initially there's always a little bit of discomfort, and I'll be lying if I was saying that I'm so comfortable to talk about anything under the sun. I'm not. There's always a little bit of discomfort with uncomfortable topics, but sometimes you have to just power yourself through that discomfort to achieve your goals, or to to get yourself moving in the direction that you want to move in. Also, I want to say that I've seen videos where it's like, if you think like this, you'll manifest that. And if you can get yourself into this perfect state of mind, then all your dreams will just happen overnight. And I just wanted to make a note of this because it's on my mind right now and I might not remember later in the video. But if you think that you can just change your entire mindset overnight, and or even if you have that perfect mindset already, that you can then manifest everything that you want in the world, I don't think that that's really how things work. And there's no harm in dreaming big, but there is harm if you think that that will definitely happen and then it doesn't, and then you feel really deeply disappointed and you give up all hope in yourself and in life. So I think it is important not necessarily to be realistic, because I don't think we always have to be realistic or we have to conform to someone's perception of what realism is, but we can have no expectations sometimes and just let our purpose and our intentions and our drive do the pushing that we need, and then we can leave the rest to Allah and see what outcome comes our way. And sometimes that outcome can look different, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be worse. And often when you look back in life, you realize that things turned out a certain way for a reason. And yes, you could have had another path. You could have Instead of going on path X, you could have gone on path Y, and that could have also worked out for you. But if path X is that path that you're on, then surely, you know, there are lessons, and there are certain things on that path as well that are blessings for you. So I think it's, yeah, that's something to think about. I mean, even in the Quran, you know, Yaqub alayhi salam, I was talking about Prophet Yusuf's story, wasn't I, quite a few times in the last few videos. But in that story, Yaqub alayhi salam, he was Yusuf's father, Yusuf alayhi salam's father. He didn't get to see his son Yusuf alayhi salam for a very long time, like possibly a few decades, possibly, you know, 2 decades or so. He didn't see him for all that time, but he really wanted to see his son, of course. You know, he missed him so much that he would cry, and he knew that eventually Yusuf alayhi salam's situation would improve. And how did he know that? Because of the dream that he confided in his father. So Yusuf alayhi salam had a dream of the fact that, you know, his brothers, which was symbolized by stars, would be bowing to him. And so this was it was a premonition that he then told his father Yaqub alayhi salam. And that dream he had, Yusuf alayhi salam had when he was a child, and it actually came to materialize in real life decades later. So Yaqub alayhi salam knew that Yusuf alayhi salam would be okay, but as a human who experiences the whole spectrum of emotion, just like everybody does on earth, you know, he did feel grief, and he did feel sad, and he did have to wait. He did have to wait for Allah's timing. So I think that's really important to remember as well, that, you know, it's Allah's timing. The reason that these deeper concepts are coming to light in this conversation is because to eliminate negative thoughts from your mind, you have to be in a position where you are programming your subconscious mind to accept certain truths. And one of those truths is Allah's timing. It is having trust in Allah. It is having, you know, tawakkul. It is understanding that everything happens for a reason, that there are no coincidences, but there are synchronicities. If you are living with purpose and you are aligned with yourself, then just trust the process. Because once you have that deep trust, then the other distractions, the other noise, they don't affect you, they don't impact you as much. And I found that to be so true for me now. Like on YouTube, you know, I'm talking about topics that are going to naturally spark some conversation, ruffle a few feathers, and, you know, naturally that these topics will do that because it's those kind of topics. And so, you know, I do see comments that are not very nice, and I do see people that are also very nice, but there's that kind of polarity in the conversation, you know, that some people will appreciate you and some people won't. And this reflects the real world anyway. But it's just that I don't need to let those things get to me anymore, because my purpose is greater than that. So I'm looking beyond myself, I'm looking beyond my own comfort, and I'm looking beyond my own feelings. I don't need to worry on my path about what other people are perceiving me as. And because I've come to that internal acceptance that this is just how things are, you know, there are people that are good, there are people that are bad. And that's the fact. There are good people, bad people. And I don't need to allow those energies to affect me. Those perceptions don't need to influence what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. You know, we often get made to believe that we are not really good enough, that we have to keep trying and trying and becoming better, and we're not quite good enough. We just, you know, there's just this bit that needs to be improved. You could just be a little bit better in that way, or this respect or that respect. But I think what happens is when you start to hear too many criticisms, then you start to doubt yourself in a way that stops your own progress, and it stops you from living life to the fullest and moving forward in your life. Everyone has an opinion. Like literally everybody has an opinion, but everyone's opinion doesn't have to affect how you live and how you live your life. Of course, if there's something constructive, like some constructive kind of feedback, then, you know, we can take it on board. But if it's destructive, or if someone's not quite getting you, they're not on the same page as you, they don't really align with you, then we don't need to give any attention to that. And often the people with the most cruelest opinions are those that are not winning in life. Because if you think about it, the people that are winning, they're too busy. They're like busy doing their own thing, focusing on their own grind. They're not going to have time to come and attack you or to share negative thoughts about you to you. Neither is their mind going to think like that, because their mind is greater than that. There's that saying, isn't there, that small minds talk about people and great minds talk about ideas and events. So just remember that, like, the people that might be negatively influencing you and contributing to those negative thoughts are people that are sadly not living their lives to the fullest. They're not happy. They're not, they're not content in their own lives. Like, how many times have you felt that you need to go and write something hateful on someone else's like profile or channel or something? You, as a decent person, you wouldn't want to do that, right? So it's the indecent people that do that. It's the people that haven't been taught morals, they haven't been taught sensitivity, they don't have emotional intelligence, they don't care, and they don't have much sense, they don't have intelligence. But the people that do are the people that are usually the ones who have something great to put out there, and they should just find that little bit of courage. And the thing is that a lot of us grow up in environments, where we've been to school, we've had other kids around us, and those childhood memories and those childhood experiences shape our reality even well into adulthood. So if you've been bullied, if you've had people say an unkind word to you as a kid and you believe those things, then that might carry through with you throughout life. And if you've been raised in a household where you've been expected to be, performing at your best all the time, and there've been so many expectations, and then as when you were in higher education, maybe the environment that you were in, there was always like this pressure to perform. Or even when you started working, there was always a pressure to perform, to get that promotion or to get appreciated. So there's always a pressure to perform, and that can make you feel stuck in this rut of, I'm just not good enough. And when you feel that you're not good enough, that courage also gets subdued. So yeah, we have to break out of these cycles that we find ourselves in, those limiting beliefs, the subconscious biases that we may even have against ourselves, and other criticisms that can affect us on a very deep subconscious level. Once we break through those by actively doing several things like giving ourselves affirmations, watching even videos that hype you up, um, and just telling yourself, well, who was that? If something comes to mind, right, when you're doing like deep reflections and you're like, oh yeah, that person said that to me and I've held it for years and I shouldn't have held it for that long. But if those things come to light, then you tell yourself, you do that analysis and you're like, well, actually, when that person said that, I should never have taken notice in the first place, because who are they really to tell me that? And why did I let it affect me? For a long time, I did not talk about religion at work for a long time. And to be honest, it was kind of like partly strategic, because I knew that if I start talking about religion, then I might start making myself a target. People have unconscious bias towards Muslims. That's just a fact, right? A lot of people have that. And because they've been subconsciously programmed by media to hate on Muslims. And then a lot of Muslims don't do themselves favors either, because there are a lot of us. There are like 2 billion Muslims in the world. That's a lot of Muslims. So 2 billion Muslims cannot represent Islam. That's just not possible. But people like to believe that Islam is being represented by Muslims. So that doesn't help. So partly it was strategic, partly I didn't really feel a need to anyway, because I wasn't in an office environment. So what I'm trying to say is, you can pick your battles. You don't have to show courage in everywhere, in every situation. You can choose to talk about something in an environment where it could be practical and beneficial to do so, and then you can choose not to talk about something in an environment where it's beneficial to do so. So definitely use wisdom, and I think that plays into the whole talk about courage as well. Once we know ourselves and we understand our purpose, and then we start walking that path, you know what? Naturally, you will start to be kinder and softer to yourself as well, because you will start to see your own growth. You will see where you started and where you're going now, where you're on, and how far you've come. One thing I also do, actually, which I think is really, really worth talking about, is I decided some time ago that I'm going to appreciate myself, because when I started to become more consciously grateful and counting my blessings, then I started to realize how many blessings I have in myself that I never really truly appreciated, because I thought that I'm not being humble by doing so. So I thought, if I look at myself and I realize that I'm smart, that I'm actually very capable. I've done so many different things. I can make most things a success. And so if I start to look at myself in that way, I used to think, no, I shouldn't go there. That's not humble. But actually, it's gratitude. And if you look at a lot of people who don't have many credentials or any credentials, yet are making it big in the real world, they've got success, they're making a lot of money, and they're, materially very successful. They just had one thing. It was their huge amount of confidence in themselves. And that confidence was the reason that they were able to break so many barriers and climb up that ladder in a certain light. You can see that they just had that belief in themselves, that self-realization that I'm capable of doing this, that I can do this, and then they did it. So in a way, I link that with gratitude, because I realized that if I have that appreciation as well for myself, that yeah, I can do this, I can do that, because I've got this gift, because I've done this before, and therefore I've demonstrated that I have this skill, and I can, if you start to appreciate things about yourself and you start to be kind to yourself, if you are not performing to the level that you want to be, you can still see and be kind to yourself, because you can recognize your own effort. You can see that you've made the effort to do what it is that you're doing, and appreciate yourself for that. Like, alhamdulillah, I've studied as much as I have, and I kept yearning for knowledge. Then I kept following that up with action. I was always trying to understand more, and I put in the effort. And I appreciate that about myself. I appreciate the fact that even though I know that my YouTube videos are not perfect, I am making the effort to show up. So I am appreciating that about myself. I appreciate about myself that I'm trying to help people out there, whether they can see my intention to do that or not. I know that I'm doing it for the right reasons. So I'm grateful for the ability to think like this, and to be able to show up and to make that effort, and to be able to help other people out there too. Being kind to yourself, not comparing yourself to other people, staying away from criticism as much as possible is so important. You don't need people to tell you what you need to do to become whatever, or to do what it is that you want. No one needs to tell you what to do. You can carve your own path. There are lots of these adverts that I see, like salesy adverts, that if you want to, become a property owner, then watch my program, or like enroll in my program, because I've got secrets that you cannot find anywhere else. And I can tell you a way that you can't find. I mean, that might be true, but it doesn't mean that you actually need it. You don't need to buy into whatever it is that they're trying to sell to you. We don't need to buy into the fact that we're not good enough, or that we can't do things by ourselves. We can learn, and we can, even if we make mistakes, it's okay. So I hope that this is kind of making some sense. I know we went into a few different conversation topics here, but I want to bring it all back and just say that, yeah, to build confidence and to remove that negativity from our minds, we have to confront ourselves, be accepting of ourselves, and accept that we will be a little bit uncomfortable, and be okay with that. Just a quick note that I've noticed I'm almost at 3,000 subscribers, and I do want to do a live. I was thinking of doing a live. I did a little poll, and I saw that the majority of people do want me to do a live at 3,000 subscribers. So I wanted to ask you, when would be the best time to do that? Would it be a weekend? I'm assuming that most people would be up for doing that on the weekend. And the only way I can really communicate this to you will be through my post on YouTube. So the post tab section, it will be through there where I can tell you, give you a heads up that I will be doing the live. But yeah, I'd love to hear if there's any topics or anything you want me to talk about in the live. Otherwise, we'll just sort of do it impromptu. Oh, actually, on this note, there is one more thing I can touch upon which relates to this topic of courage, that you don't need to take people's permission, or you don't need to rely on people for approval and validation. So the reason I'm saying that is because once you become less dependent on approval and validation, you will start to rely on yourself, and that will build your courage as well. And also, this dua, Rabbi Shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri, that dua, like the whole of it, I've not said the whole of it, but that dua which Musa alayhi salam said when he needed courage to speak to the Pharaoh, this is a life-changing dua which I saw turn around my anxiety as well. It really eradicated my anxiety. So I would say definitely say this dua and say it with conviction, and inshallah you'll see the results that I saw. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and inshallah I'll see you next time.